Brace yourselves. Grocery prices are about to skyrocket. From fresh produce to frozen staples, the cost of everyday essentials is climbing fast. Rising expenses in food production, transportation, and packaging are creating a ripple effect across supermarket shelves. Experts predict that some items, including meat, dairy, grains, and more, could see their prices double in just a few weeks. Global supply chain disruptions, extreme weather, and shifting policies are fueling this surge, leaving shoppers bracing for impact. If you've noticed your grocery bill creeping higher, you're not alone. This is just the beginning. Stay tuned as we break down the 8 grocery products most likely to hit your wallet the hardest next month. Don't miss this critical update to help you prepare and save. 1. The beef price squeeze. Beef prices are at the forefront of grocery inflation, and the reasons are deeply rooted in supply chain challenges and long-term production cycles. The national cattle herd is at historically low levels, a result of years of drought and high operational costs that forced ranchers to reduce their herds. Rebuilding these herds is not a quick fix. It takes years, not months, to recover. This has created a competitive environment where feedlots are scrambling to secure limited cattle, driving up prices at every stage of the supply chain. Meat packers are paying record amounts for cattle, and these costs inevitably trickle down to consumers at the checkout counter. Government reports confirm that beef production is expected to remain tight in the coming year, even as imports rise to fill the gap. This reliance on global markets underscores the strain on domestic supply, with wholesalers searching far and wide to keep shelves stocked. At the retail level, the impact is clear. Fewer discounts, smaller family pack promotions, and significant price variability depending on the region. The beef component of the Consumer Price Index has been climbing faster than overall grocery inflation, signaling that this trend is far from over. While poultry might seem like a more affordable alternative, it offers only limited relief. Broiler chicken production has been relatively stable, but the turkey market remains vulnerable to outbreaks of avian influenza. These flare-ups can cause sudden price spikes for turkey and other substitute proteins, which in turn pushes shoppers back toward beef and pork, further amplifying market volatility. Feed costs also play a role. Although corn and soybean meal prices have eased from last year's highs, forage and hay remain expensive due to weather-related challenges. This keeps profit margins for ranchers razor-thin, discouraging aggressive herd expansion. Energy and logistics costs add yet another layer of complexity. Diesel prices and cold chain logistics significantly influence the final price of beef, from boxed cuts to ready-to-cook trays. Even moderate fluctuations in fuel costs can ripple through freight contracts, making transportation more expensive. The result is a perfect storm of tight cattle supplies, high production costs, and cautious retail strategies. Premium cuts like steaks and roasts are becoming luxury items in some markets, while ground beef remains the go-to option for budget-conscious shoppers. This dynamic explains why beef prices can jump dramatically from one week to the next, even without a major market shock. 2. Dairy's volatile landscape. Dairy products are no stranger to inflation, and the factors driving their rising costs are as complex as they are varied. Milk production in the U.S. is slowly increasing, but the pace is not enough to offset the pressures of higher wholesale prices and lingering risks in animal health and logistics. These challenges make dairy prices more volatile than in previous years, with month-to-month swings that can catch consumers off guard. Recent data from the Consumer Price Index shows fresh upward movement in the dairy category, with staples like cheese and whole milk reaching new price highs. Supermarkets, meanwhile, are scaling back on promotions, leaving shoppers with fewer opportunities to save. Global markets also play a significant role in shaping U.S. dairy prices. International trade events have kept butter and cheddar prices elevated, even when changes from one auction to the next are minimal. This global price floor supports higher wholesale costs for U.S. dairy products, particularly fats and cheese block. Butter, in particular, is highly sensitive to seasonal demand. As bakeries and food service providers stock up for the holidays, spot markets tighten, and retail inventories feel the squeeze. Biosecurity concerns add another layer of uncertainty. Recent detections of H5N1 avian influenza in dairy herds have prompted federal testing and movement controls. While regulators assure the public that pasteurization eliminates the virus and that affected milk is diverted or destroyed, these measures can disrupt regional supply chains. Delays in lab testing, trucking, or plant operations can create temporary shortages, nudging prices higher in affected areas. Energy costs further complicate the picture. Diesel price fluctuations impact the cost of transporting milk and dairy products, while power costs affect processing plants. These factors, combined with cautious retail promotions and global market pressures, create an environment where dairy prices can spike unexpectedly. Butter, cheese, and milk are particularly vulnerable, with even minor disruptions leading to noticeable price increases. While a universal doubling of dairy prices is unlikely, the mix of seasonal demand, global trade dynamics, and logistical challenges makes sharp regional price hikes a real possibility. 3. The hidden costs of bread and grains. Grain-based products like bread, pasta, and crackers are facing their own set of inflationary pressures. Despite global harvests showing record or near-record output, the disconnect lies in the costs associated with turning raw grains into finished products. Milling margins, energy expenses, packaging, and freight all contribute to keeping bakery prices high. Even as global grain stocks improve, small supply shocks can still cause significant price movements, particularly in regional markets that rely on imports or long-haul transportation. Wholesale prices for bakery items have been climbing steadily, and retailers have been reluctant to roll back these increases. Instead, they've reduced promotions, making it harder for consumers to find deals on everyday staples like sandwich bread and tortillas. The quality of milling wheat also plays a role. High production volumes don't always translate to the right protein levels needed for bread flour, forcing mills to pay premiums to blend different lots. These hidden costs eventually make their way to store shelves, affecting both store brands and national labels. Weather events add another layer of unpredictability. Delays in prairie harvests, drought conditions in Europe, and uneven rainfall patterns can disrupt local flour supplies, making weekly procurement more expensive for bakeries. Trade policies also influence prices. When major grain exporting countries adjust taxes, quotas, or minimum export prices, it creates a ripple effect in global markets. Buyers are forced to shift their sourcing strategies, which can widen freight spreads and increase the landed cost of flour. Energy costs are the silent driver behind many of these price increases. Bakeries and flour mills rely heavily on gas-fired ovens and electric motors, and any fluctuation in power or diesel prices quickly shows up in wholesale costs. The result is a market where the raw grain supply looks stable on paper, but the finished products face episodic price spikes. Smaller package sizes, fewer discounts, and sudden jumps in shelf prices are becoming the norm, creating the conditions for sharp increases in bread and grain-based items in certain regions. 4. Produce prices on a roller coaster. Fresh fruits and vegetables are among the most volatile categories in the grocery store, with prices that can swing dramatically based on weather, labor availability, and transportation costs. Unlike other food categories, produce is highly perishable and time-sensitive, making it particularly vulnerable to disruptions. While overall grocery inflation remains modest, produce prices often behave differently due to the unique challenges of harvesting and distribution. The U.S. relies heavily on imports for many popular items, including berries, avocados, tomatoes, and cucumbers. This dependence means that any delay at the border, whether due to inspections, safety concerns, or trucking bottlenecks, can quickly thin supplies and drive up prices. Domestic production faces its own challenges. Heat waves in key growing regions, earlier floods, and disease outbreaks can all impact yields and quality. These issues create a cycle of recovery and decline, making it difficult for prices to stabilize. Transportation costs are another major factor. Long shipping routes expose produce to fluctuations in fuel prices and cold chain logistics. When the Panama Canal experiences delays or shipping lines reroute vessels, lead times increase and freight costs rise. Even when container rates drop, the availability of cold chain space can remain tight, adding to the cost of getting fresh produce to market. Retailers respond to these challenges by adjusting their promotion. Deep discounts on delicate items become less common during tight supply weeks, and premium fruits are often sold in smaller packages. Wholesale prices for items like lettuce, broccoli, and berries can jump overnight following a weather event, while avocados and bell peppers are particularly sensitive to border delays. Although not every region will see a doubling of produce prices, the combination of weather disruptions, transportation challenges, and cautious retail strategies creates the potential for sharp increases in specific items. Leafy greens, berries, and high import products are especially at risk, making them the wild cards in the produce aisle. Valve. The packaging predicament in canned goods. Canned and packaged goods are under immense pressure as rising costs in metals, resins, and transportation collide with fluctuating harvests and shifting trade policies. This combination creates a volatile environment where prices for soups, sauces, beans, tuna, and other shelf-stable items can spike dramatically from one month to the next. The cost of steel and aluminum, essential for can production, has surged due to tariffs and global market instability. Fresh tariffs on steel and aluminum, now set at 50%, along with expanded lists of covered derivative items, have raised the baseline cost of cans. Meanwhile, the volatility of aluminum prices on the London Metal Exchange leaves manufacturers scrambling to renegotiate contracts, often with little notice. Tin plate, a critical material for seafood and other canned goods, remains a contested resource, further complicating the supply chain. While plastics might seem like a viable alternative, they are not immune to cost pressures. Polypropylene and other resins have stabilized somewhat from their peak prices, but producers still face additional expenses from tariffs, energy costs, and logistics. This means that any savings from using plastic packaging are often offset by other rising costs. On the ingredient side, the outlook is equally mixed. California's processing tomato acreage is healthy, but yields remain below last year's levels, keeping products like crushed tomatoes, pizza sauce, and paste sensitive to weather and quality fluctuations. Tuna prices have seen some relief, with Bangkok markets softening, but new U.S. tariff settings have tightened margins for brands reliant on imports. Transportation and logistics add another layer of complexity. Global shipping remains fragile, with rerouted trade routes and constraints at key points like the Red Sea extending delivery times and straining capacity for both refrigerated and dry goods. Retailers are responding by leaning more heavily on private label products to manage costs. But this often results in shrinkflation, smaller package sizes for the same price. The result is a market where overlapping factors like higher metal costs, modest resin relief, stretched shipping networks, and seasonal ingredient fluctuations can cause sudden price hikes for canned and packaged goods. Shoppers may notice these increases in the form of fewer promotions, higher prices, and reduced variety on store shelves. 6. The oil price tug-of-war. Edible oils, from vegetable and sunflower to premium olive oil, are caught in a global tug-of-war that's driving prices higher. Benchmark indices for vegetable oils have shown renewed firmness, even as new harvest data suggests some medium-term relief for certain oil seeds. The FAO Food Price Index has highlighted significant pressure on vegetable oils, with the sub-index reaching its highest level in over 3 years. This broad increase affects a range of products, including palm, sunflower, and rapeseed oils, making them more expensive for consumers. Olive oil in particular has become a luxury item after consecutive droughts in the Mediterranean severely impacted production. While trade updates for 2025 suggest a more stable outlook, prices remain elevated compared to pre-drought years. This keeps premium olive oil bottles and blends out of reach for many shoppers. In the palm oil market, Indonesia's shift from B35 to B40 biodiesel blending has absorbed additional domestic supply, reducing export availability. Even as plantations recover from weather-related disruptions, this policy change has tightened the global balance, keeping prices high. Sunflower oil flows from the Black Sea have improved compared to past interruptions, but they remain inconsistent. Ukraine's shipments for the 2024-2025 season were lower than the previous year, reinforcing the potential for price spikes when buyers compete for limited supply. In North America and Europe, the outlook for oilseeds like soybeans and canola is more optimistic. USDA reports show an increase in U.S. soybean crushing, driven by demand for renewable diesel feedstock. However, this keeps soybean oil prices firm, even as farmers harvest larger crops. Meanwhile, better canola and rapeseed harvests in Canada and the EU could ease some pressure later in the season. Freight costs remain a wild card. Diversions through the Red Sea continue to stretch transit times and complicate shipping routes, though recent benchmarks show some relief as additional capacity comes online. This means that logistics can either amplify or mitigate price spikes, depending on timing. The net effect is a market where premium olive oil remains expensive. Everyday vegetable and sunflower oils are vulnerable to sudden increases, and rapeseed oil prices may soften if harvests meet expectations. These dynamics create the conditions for sharp, unpredictable price changes in the edible oil aisle. 7. Brewing costs in coffee and beverages. Coffee and beverages are feeling the heat from a combination of crop yields, packaging costs, freight challenges, and corporate pricing strategies. Coffee prices in particular have been volatile, with Robusta futures trading near historic highs due to tight supplies from Vietnam and weather-related stress. Brazil's outlook for the 2025-2026 Arabica crop is less optimistic, with prior dryness expected to result in a smaller harvest. This has made roasters cautious about their forward contracts, especially for blends that rely on cheaper Robusta beans to keep costs down. While global coffee production in parts of Asia and Africa has improved, near-term deficits for Arabica beans and a brisk draw on inventories have kept wholesale prices high. This volatility is reflected at the retail level, where coffee and tea prices have risen faster than overall grocery inflation. The cost of energy for roasting and bottling further adds to the pressure, making it difficult for prices to stabilize. Packaging is another significant factor. New U.S. tariffs on aluminum can ends and lids, as well as expanded duties on PET and ERPT plastics, have raised costs for both canned and bottled beverages. Freight costs, influenced by Red Sea diversions and fluctuating container rates, act as a multiplier for these input costs. Sugar prices add yet another layer of complexity. India's export policies, which oscillate between allowing and restricting shipments, have caused global sugar prices to swing dramatically. This directly impacts the cost of sweetened beverages, from sodas to energy drinks. Major beverage companies have reported steady pricing power in their earnings updates, but warn that tariffs and supply chain disruptions continue to elevate costs. Even if commodity prices cool, the combined impact of packaging, freight, and sugar costs means that shelf prices for coffee, instant mixes, canned drinks, and bottled sodas can still rise sharply. These factors create a perfect storm for price increases, leaving consumers to bear the brunt of higher costs. 8. The freezer case crunch. Frozen foods are facing a unique set of challenges that make them particularly susceptible to price hikes. The cost of maintaining cold chains, combined with packaging expenses, shipping disruptions, and regulatory changes, has created a volatile market for frozen vegetables, seafood, pizzas, and ready meals. Recent Consumer Price Index data highlights frozen and freeze-dried foods as one of the most unpredictable categories, with month-to-month price swings that don't always align with broader food inflation trends. Cold storage and handling fees are a significant driver of these costs. Even when warehouse volumes soften, operators rely on annual rate increases to maintain revenues, pushing up retail prices during tight weeks. Electricity costs are another major factor. As demand for power rises across the U.S., energy-intensive blast freezers and storage facilities face higher operating expenses. Regulatory changes, such as the US HFC phase-down under the AAM Act, add further cost. These rules require upgrades to refrigeration systems, leak monitoring, and compliance with new refrigerant standards, all of which increase the cost of storing and transporting frozen goods. Packaging costs have also surged, with corrugated and paperboard prices rising in some regions. These materials are essential for the cartons that house frozen dinners and multipacks, and their prices remain sensitive to fluctuations in pulp, tariffs, and logistics. Shipping disruptions, particularly in lanes affected by Red Sea diversions, have tightened the availability of refrigerated containers, adding to the cost of transporting frozen foods. Category-specific factors further complicate the picture. Frozen potatoes, for example, are affected by tariffs and mixed crop signals, while seafood and specialty items are vulnerable to container availability and long-haul transit times. The result is a market where frozen foods can experience sudden price jumps, with some items doubling in cost in specific regions. Shoppers may notice these increases in the form of smaller package sizes, fewer promotions, and higher prices for their favorite frozen staple. Bonus point 9. The snack inflation spiral. Snacks from chips and crackers to granola bars and cookies are no longer the affordable indulgence they once were. Rising costs in ingredients, packaging, and transportation have created a perfect storm for this category, leading to noticeable price hikes. The snack aisle is particularly vulnerable to inflation because it relies heavily on processed ingredients like oils, grains, and sweeteners, all of which have seen significant cost increases in recent years. For example, the price of vegetable oils, a key component in many snack foods, has been driven up by global supply chain disruptions and policy changes, as discussed earlier. Similarly, wheat and corn, essential for crackers and chips, have faced their own set of challenges, from weather-related crop failures to increased transportation costs. Packaging is another major factor. Many snacks are sold in single-use plastic or multi-layered packaging, which has become more expensive due to rising resin prices and tariffs on imported materials. Even as some costs stabilize, manufacturers are still grappling with higher logistics expenses, particularly for long-haul transportation. The result is a market where snack producers are forced to pass these costs on to consumers, often in the form of smaller package sizes or higher prices per unit. Retailers have also adjusted their strategies, offering fewer promotions and discounts on popular snack items. This means that shoppers are paying more for less, a trend that has been dubbed shrinkflation. While this tactic helps manufacturers maintain their profit margins, it leaves consumers feeling the pinch. The snack aisle, once a haven for affordable treats, has become a battleground for budget-conscious shoppers. With all these factors at play, it's no surprise that snacks are becoming a luxury for some households, and prices could continue to climb in the months ahead. Bonus point 10, the condiment conundrum. Condiments like ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, and salad dressings are staples in most households, but they're not immune to the pressures of inflation. The rising cost of key ingredients, such as tomatoes, eggs, and oils, has had a direct impact on this category. For instance, the processing tomato market, which supplies the paste used in ketchup and other sauces, has been under strain due to lower yields and weather-related challenges. Similarly, the cost of eggs, a critical ingredient in mayonnaise, has been volatile due to outbreaks of avian influenza and fluctuating feed prices. Packaging costs are another significant driver of inflation in the condiment aisle. Many condiments are sold in plastic bottles or glass jars, both of which have become more expensive to produce and transport. Tariffs on imported materials and rising energy costs have further compounded these challenges, making it more expensive for manufacturers to get their products onto store shelves. Transportation costs, particularly for heavy or bulky items like glass jars, add another layer of complexity, as fuel price fluctuations directly impact freight expenses. Retailers have responded by reducing promotions and offering fewer discounts on condiments, making it harder for consumers to find deals. Some brands have also resorted to shrinkflation, reducing the size of their bottles or jars while keeping prices the same. This means that shoppers are paying more for less, a trend that has become increasingly common across the grocery store. With all these factors at play, the condiment aisle is no longer the budget-friendly section it once was, and prices are likely to remain high in the near future. Bonus point 11. The baking aisle blues. The baking aisle, once a haven for home cooks and bakers, has become another hotspot for inflation. Key ingredients like flour, sugar, and baking powder have all seen price increases due to a combination of supply chain disruptions, weather-related crop failures, and rising transportation costs. For example, wheat, the primary ingredient in flour, has faced challenges ranging from droughts in major growings to increased demand for exports. These factors have driven up the cost of flour, making it more expensive for consumers to bake at home. Sugar, another staple in the baking aisle, has also been affected by global market dynamics. India, one of the world's largest sugar producers, has implemented export restrictions to stabilize domestic prices, leading to fluctuations in global supply. This has caused sugar prices to rise, impacting not only the cost of baking, but also the price of prepackaged baked goods. Other ingredients like baking powder and yeast have been affected by rising production and transportation costs, further adding to the strain on the baking aisle. Packaging and logistics costs are also significant contributors to inflation in this category. Many baking products are sold in paper or plastic packaging, both of which have become more expensive due to rising raw material costs and tariffs. Transportation costs, particularly for heavy or bulky items like bags of flour or sugar, have also increased, making it more expensive for manufacturers to get their products to market. As a result, the baking aisle has become a less affordable option for many households, and prices are likely to remain high in the months ahead. Bonus point 12. The pet food price surge. Pet owners are feeling the pinch as the cost of pet food continues to rise. This category has been hit hard by inflation, with rising costs in ingredients, packaging, and transportation driving up prices across the board. Many pet foods rely on meat, grains, and oils, all of which have seen significant cost increases in recent years. For example, the price of meat, a key ingredient in many pet foods, has been driven up by tight cattle supplies and rising production costs. Similarly, the cost of grains, which are often used as fillers in pet food, has been affected by weather-related crop failures and increased demand for exports. Packaging costs are another major factor. Many pet foods are sold in large bags or cans, both of which have become more expensive to produce and transport. Tariffs on imported materials and rising energy costs have further compounded these challenges, making it more expensive for manufacturers to get their products onto store shelves. Transportation costs, particularly for heavy or bulky items like bags of pet food, add another layer of complexity, as fuel price fluctuations directly impact freight expenses. Retailers have responded by reducing promotions and offering fewer discounts on pet food, making it harder for consumers to find deals. Some brands have also resorted to shrinkflation, reducing the size of their bags or cans while keeping prices the same. This means that pet owners are paying more for less, a trend that has become increasingly common across the grocery store. With all these factors at play, the pet food aisle is no longer the budget-friendly section it once was, and prices are likely to remain high in the near future. As grocery prices continue to climb, shoppers are facing a perfect storm of rising costs across nearly every aisle. From beef and dairy to grains, produce, and even frozen foods, the factors driving these increases: tight supplies, global trade disruptions, weather events, and soaring transportation costs, are creating a volatile market where price hikes can strike without warning. Even staples like canned goods, oils, and beverages are not immune, as packaging, logistics, and ingredient costs ripple through the supply chain. While not every product will double in price overnight, the conditions are ripe for sharp, unpredictable spikes in certain categories and regions. For consumers, this means planning ahead, shopping smart, and staying informed about market trends will be more important than ever. By understanding which products are most vulnerable to inflation, you can make strategic choices to stretch your budget and avoid sticker shock at the checkout. The grocery store landscape is shifting rapidly, and while these price hikes may feel overwhelming, being prepared is the first step to navigating this challenging time. Keep an eye on promotions, consider alternatives, and stock up on essentials when prices are favorable. With a little foresight, you can weather the storm and keep your pantry stocked without breaking the bank.